So thank you very much for the questions that you've written down on your way in. We'll do our best to go through these. We will have a kind of bit of open question time at the end. And this is not the end of questions. I'm sure we'll do our best, Henry and Sarah, to answer your questions tonight. But there'll probably be more questions that you have, and there's plenty of time to keep asking. This is kind of the start of a conversation for many of us. So let's start with... and again, some of these questions you may feel have already been answered in the presentations, which is great. So it may be just a question of adding some comments in. But if we start with, if you wanted to say anything more about the main reasons why we're actually moving, what's our vision for moving?
I think
you have just said that, yeah.
This is why I gave you the script in advance, so you wouldn't ask us questions that we were already answering.
I just want to, if someone's asked the question, to make sure that they feel they had an answer.
It's a vision-led project. It's because of the vision of St Barnabas to be a large resourcing regional church missionally going out, and that this location and this facility is inadequate for that.
Great, thank you. A few questions about phase 2, which is in the future, obviously. So questions around timing and how many does the auditorium seat, those kind of questions.
Okay, the latter,
timing first,
question. Can I do the latter question?
Yeah,
That's the easy one. It seats 500. So this room seats around 300. In fact, we have 300 of these chairs. And the ground floor of Solar House, as we will move into it, we're going to be able to lay out all of these chairs, 300. So that'll have a capacity of 300. When we build the auditorium, it'll have a 500 capacity, substantially bigger. We would have liked larger, but there are constraints of the size of the site and the financial constraints, but it's a large auditorium. Timing. When should we do it? The answer is we will do it as soon as we can financially. So we have fundraised and we have raised sufficient to fulfill phase 1 and no more. In fact, we're still pretty tight on that, and that includes some loans that we have to pay back. We have not raised anything as yet towards phase 2, and which is basically this big box on the back, this auditorium. Very, very large building. It will cost approximately 4 million to build, and we need to raise that money. How long will it take us to raise that? If it goes well, it could be a couple of years. If it doesn't go well, it could take significantly longer than that.
Do you think that we'll be doing similar services, number of services when we get to phase 2, when we start at Solar House? What's the timing of our services on Sundays?
I'll let you answer some questions eventually, Sarah.
That's fine.
Our intention is that we are going to run all our same services to start off with. Now, that's not to say that we won't change in due course, as the Lord leads. But we want to keep as much the same as we can, because heaven knows we are changing a lot. And so I know that many people feel a close association to a specific service, that they've grown up as quite close-knit communities, and we want to keep that intact as we move.
Great, thanks, Henry. Shall we move on to some questions about the what it's going to be like being in Solar House? So a question around parking. How are we going to kind of be good neighbours around with concerns from the residents about parking?
You're going to make me answer that one?
Yeah.
We have a travel plan that we've had to sign up to as part of the planning conditions. We'll be encouraging people to come as much as possible by public transport to alleviate sort of pressure on the roads and also on parking. In terms of the parking that's available, there's enough parking on site for our midweek activities. So if you ever come to a midweek activity, you'll be able to park on site. On Sundays, we will be asking all of our regular members to park elsewhere and walk. So there's Lodge Lane car park, which is, according to Henry, 4 minutes and 17 seconds walk away.
It is. I've walked it. It's exactly that.
If you walk at precisely the same rate that Henry does. And that's free on Sundays, and it's got 600 spaces. So we'll be encouraging people to park there and walk the short walk up to Solar House. There will be parking on site for disabled and for visitors.
Should say that if you looked at the building, you think, where on earth is the parking? The whole of the site has a basement level, and there's an undercroft car park across the whole of the site. So that's where our on-site parking is.
And some parking around the back, where we are going to build the auditorium in phase 2, at which point we'll lose all that parking. So, we have agreed a voluntary no parking zone in the area immediately around Solar House, and you can see on the slide which roads that covers. We'll obviously have lots more communication about that closer to the time. It's a voluntary thing, there's no CPZ in place, but it's something that we will need to make sure that we're doing in order to comply with our planning and be good neighbours to the people around us. Viv's got a question, I think. No, there's absolutely, there is the facility to have some people parking on site, so people who need to, but our regular members turning up on a Sunday for the service, we'll be asking to park at Lodge Lane.
So for Sundays, disabled people can park on site. Newcomers, obviously they're just coming for the first time, so they don't know the system. They can park on site, and you're not allowed to pretend that you're a newcomer.
Because we know who you are.
And obviously people who are delivering stuff can park on site. We've got enough for that, but we haven't got enough for all of us.
Great, thank you. There's going to be a cafe area, a big foyer as we come in through the front door. Those kind of facilities, coffee shop, cafe, bookshop possibly, prayer stations, those kind of things, will they be just open generally to people during the week, during office hours?
That's certainly our hope in the future. It's going to be a process of building up those sort of new ministry areas. And I would imagine the cafe will open initially not 7 days a week, but that will be what we hope it will grow into.
So obviously one of the heart of the vision is this will be a fully used building, really contributing to the life of North Finchley, open every day of the week, probably with activities going on every day and every evening. But that won't be day one, will it? We'll grow to that.
And I think the name of the church on the front will be St Barnabas, North London. How did the journey happen where we were starting to talk about St Barnabas, North London, as opposed to St Barnabas Church, the name?
Okay, so the official name of St Barnabas is St Barnabas Woodside Park. And that's very lovely, but the problem with it is that people outside of the North Finchley area do not know where Woodside Park is. And our vision is to be a regional church, a large resourcing church for North London. So it was the PCC actually that proposed that we should call ourselves St Barnabas North London. We adopted that a couple of years ago, and we will take that to the full level when we move up to Solar House, when we have a great headquarters building quite central for North London, and so I think it's a good name for us.
Great, thank you. There have been some sort of specific questions around different ministries, and I know Sarah was saying that it'd be great for those that are overseeing those, particularly the volunteer-led ministries, to start conversations with leaders about how those ministries are going to operate at Solar House. But of course, if you are leading a ministry, that's going to be a major concern for you. And so there are some questions around specific ministries, should we just go through some of those together? Some of which I know you have begun conversations about, Sarah, and I'm sure they'll carry on. So with the community lunch and the night shelter, the homeless missional community ministries, just some concerns around the ministry being up on the second floor. I mean, should we just go through those one at a time? So how's that going to work?
I think all the homeless missional community activities will be on the first floor, not the second floor. And the reason for that is that it's a multi-floor building, and we've got to use different spaces for different things. The ground floor will be very full on a Sunday of people leaving from the 11:30 service, for example. More difficult than here in terms of on that one floor, but that's the whole point of having lots of floors.
There are no separate halls on the ground floor except the chapel, so there simply isn't the space. Conversely, on the first floor, there's a very large hall, much larger than the parish hall. There are also ancillary rooms which will be the site of the night shelter. There'll be a kitchen there, there'll be loos there, there'll be a washing machine, a shower, and it is also that location that in due course we plan to open our food bank and clothes bank. So a little bit of a hub for all of those ministries. Really fantastic facilities, we hope.
Great.
And there's a couple of sets of stairs that go up to the first floor and 2 lifts, so there's plenty of access for people. And also to take the food up and down, we'll have a hot trolley and other trolleys to take the food up and down to try to make that as easy as possible.
And access to things like showers for guests of the homeless communities. Great, thank you. With the English classes, they operate Tuesday mornings. Would that still carry on in Solar House?
Yeah, at the moment, we're planning to carry on doing everything that we're doing here, just there, and then some. We will continue to grow and expand once we're there as well. So while I may not have gone through every different ministry that we have and where it's going to be, all of those things will happen. I think a lot of them will be happening on the first floor, because, as Henry said, that's where a lot of the separate meeting rooms are. So there'll probably be a meeting room that's the right size for whatever is happening there on the first floor, but there's also spaces on the second floor, and obviously for bigger things on the ground floor as well.
And as we move from here to there, are there going to be is there going to be kind of a party or a celebration or something in terms of leaving, and what would happen as we arrive in terms of celebrating?
Yeah, we're going to plan a celebration service. I suggested a funeral. That seemed to have been vetoed. I actually suggested, why don't we have a model of St. Barnabas and process it down the aisle to funeral music? But nobody liked that. But we want to celebrate this building. We're hoping to have a photographic competition so that you can take photos of the building or things that you've done in the building and celebrate the last 104 years of God's mercy for us here. We'll be doing that in beginning of June.
And then once we get to Solar House, we're planning a big opening ceremony in the early autumn, probably September, October. So not the first week that we're there. That would be a bit much to handle. So give ourselves the summer to sort of move in, get settled, work out what we're doing, and then a big ceremony to which we'll invite everybody who's been involved and lots of exciting people to come and be part of celebrating with us the move.
How do you think we'll communicate to kind of the outside world that we're moving?
We are already trying to communicate to the outside world that we're moving. We've had a poster on the station, and we will have another poster on the station in very, very soon, saying that we're moving. We've got a big hoarding up on the high road. If you walk past Solar House, you will see a massive advert of saying we're moving, and it's all about St. Barnabas. And we'll probably do something out the front here in due course as well for our immediate neighbourhood. Any other thoughts?
We've had the press involved. We invited them to the groundbreaking ceremony. We'll keep them involved and try to encourage them to write some articles about the move, and particularly when we get to the opening ceremony. And yeah, any other ideas that people have for how we get that message out, please do let us know.
Great. And is it just quite a detailed question, but good to ask? Is there going to be any kind of area where people can smoke when they're at Solar House in terms of the homeless community?
We looked into this, and it's not very easy because of the structure of the building. So we've not currently got a planned designated smoking area. So that's one of the things that's not been easy to do.
But there is an area outside, adjacent to the ramp, which I think is in our original plans at least, was designated as an informal smoking area. So maybe we'll need to strap some ashtrays on the wall there.
Yeah, quite a few of those details still to resolve and work through, aren't there, as we get closer. So I think there's only 2 or 3 more questions, so you're doing really well, thank you. This is great. So a couple of questions about different ministries. So with the young people of North London, reaching kids and youth, how would we go about reaching more kids and youth from being in our new facility, do you think?
Those of us who were at PCC on Monday listened spellbound to Peter Landry, our youth pastor. The youth ministry of St Barnabas has doubled in the last year. They've seen 55 first-time or recommitments to Christ in the last year. The youth work here is exploding. It's at near revival point as I speak. It's just the most thrilling thing. You know, us oldies maybe dyed in the wool and getting a bit jaded, but the youth are going for it in the most spectacular and fantastic ways. Within that, Peter is now being sought out by others. He is becoming the Edmonton area advisor for youth work with an access straight into the bishop. He is connecting with other youth ministries around the Barnet area and is teaming up with other youth workers and hope to hold joint youth events because, youth, they're always a bit like the wildebeest, aren't they? You know, they go in mass. Wherever it is, they go in a big, they migrate in huge numbers. And so we're hoping to leverage that phenomena with teaming up with others. I'm not the right person to answer this question because Peter is on it, but it is incredibly exciting what's happening here. Of course, we pray that will accelerate at Solar House as they have better facilities and more space.
Yeah, Peter's got lots of plans as to how he's going to continue to develop and expand the youth work. And for instance, the youth snug that I showed you, he's got a hope and plan to turn that into a sort of homework club for after school with computers and printers for people who don't have access to that at home, a safe place to come and do their homework. So ideas like that really that are only possible because of the move to Solar House, and he's got lots more. So there will be lots of growth, I'm sure. And
with discipleship, how do you think we'll do discipleship at Solar House? Will that be different to how we do it here?
I think the short answer is yes and no. We're looking into our discipleship quite a lot at the moment. Chris Alexander, who's been on staff for 5 months now, is spearheading all sorts of initiatives to up the level of our discipleship. We want to see more groups launched. We want to be running courses. We want to be doing various other equipping things. So all that will continue at Solar House, and so that's the kind of no answer. We won't be doing it any different. We're actually prioritizing that now, and that's new initiatives are being launched now, and we're glad of that because I think it's been an area of weakness in the last couple of years, and we want to really address that. and the move won't alter that. In the longer term, the answer is surely yes, because as a resourcing church, we will be able to put on many more equipping type events, conferences, courses, and so forth. But that's for the future, and it'll take us a while to get there.
I think also there's some sort of more specific areas of discipleship which will be changing. So, for instance, our vision to have lots of social enterprises which will involve training up apprentices and discipling them and really mentoring them through a 12, 18, 24-month program. That's something very new and different to what we're doing at the moment. That's very much part of the vision for the move.
Thanks. And I think probably lastly, until we open up for questions, that if you feel your question hasn't been asked by me properly, or you want to ask more questions, that'll come in a sec. But lastly, if you're a ministry leader here with a volunteer-led ministry like hospitality or the prayer ministry, and as it always is a challenge to get people onto those teams, what would you say to those ministry leaders about moving to Solar House when we're probably going to need bigger teams?
We need to start planning for this now. We're very aware that we will have to invent new systems and new ways of doing things from scratch in a new building. Hospitality, for instance, will work in a completely different way. The kitchens will be different, and whilst there will be an element of learning how to live in the building once we get there, we need to plan in advance, and these are huge and important areas. The question was specifically
it's about
regarding
volunteers,
recruiting.
Concerns about recruiting team members.
I think people's commitment to the church, whether that is in terms of money or time, follows their ability to grasp the vision. And so we want to be talking about what God is doing, why we're doing it, why we're doing this very radical scheme, and hopefully get the whole church excited about it so that they want to get involved in some way. But we probably need to be more intentional than that. And I haven't worked out how to do that yet. Have you got any ideas?
No.
You're busy with a few other things, aren't you, Sarah?
Great. So if you've got ideas of how we can engage in that. What I would say about volunteers is that we've found over many years that lots of people often come to me and say, could you put out a plea from the front for volunteers? And of course, I will do that. It has to be said, it is the most ineffective way of recruiting volunteers. People just do not come forward and volunteer from an appeal from the front. What they do is they respond to a personal invitation. And so what we need to do is get the church talking to itself, so that volunteerism just spreads like wildfire through relationship.